Hello everyone, welcome. This is Ashley Hartz from Soul Garden Health, and today I'm really excited to introduce you to a really good friend of mine that I've met here in Santa Cruz. Her name is Rebecca Hazelton. She is a nutrition and fitness expert and also an author now of 2 books that we're going to talk about today. So welcome, Rebecca, and can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Thanks, Ashley. It's so great to be here with you today. Yes, I have been in the wellness industry for going on 16 years, and let me tell you, the time has certainly flown by. I have worked in a lot of different areas within this industry. So I started out as a personal trainer and then kind of dabbled in a couple of other things that led me to become a licensed nutritionist and functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, which is a mouthful. But it shows how I am able to work with people on a deeper level to investigate the root cause of why they're not getting the changes that they're after when they have tried a lot of different basic things.
Okay, great. And how did you become interested in this field of health, wellness, fitness? You said you've been doing this for many years now.
Yeah.
What really sparked your interest at the beginning to get you started on this path?
That's a good question. I've always been interested in it. I remember as a kid, I really enjoyed being physically active and just being in my body and exploring the world in that way through doing cartwheels to doing push-ups. But really, my father struggled a lot with his health, so he was an inspiration for me to help people. So that's what got me interested in working with people on their health and fitness. I've always been really interested in it myself.
That's great. And so when you have clients that come to you, what are some of the things that you offer that's unique to help them reach their goals, work through their challenges? I know you touched on functional diagnostic nutrition. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how it really gives people this new perspective on their health?
Yeah, absolutely. So I found that when I started out as a personal trainer and I didn't have a detailed nutrition background, that it wasn't enough. I had a lot of passion and a lot of book knowledge, and it just didn't end up translating to the kind of changes that I really wanted to see my clients achieve and that they wanted to achieve for themselves. And so I sought out a deeper level of education. What I now offer is a very comprehensive approach to health and wellness. So I'll start out wherever people are really needing or wanting to go. So some people want to start with getting a customized diet plan, which I do. Other people, they want to do a combination of customized diet and nutrition plans, and that's great. Or customized diet, nutrition, and fitness plan, and that's great. And then there are those people that really have a deeper level of investigation that they need to do, and that's where the FDN is the abbreviation for functional diagnostic nutrition comes in quite handy, because I'm able to do some functional lab work with them and get a deeper look at their hidden stressors. What's blocking them from reaching their goals when diet and exercise don't seem to be enough?
Okay, great. And is there any common denominator you're noticing right now that is really coming in and through your clients that you're seeing over and over again? Anything that's really a pattern that you feel is something that as a whole, as a society, we should be more aware of?
That's a great question. Yeah, I see, gosh, it would be like a 3-way tie, I feel, because I see so many people who struggle with low energy and hormone imbalance and gut issues. So it would be really difficult to determine, which I see more of, but those are the biggies. And I see a ton of thyroid conditions as well. People are really suffering. And there's a very deep connection. You're probably aware, and maybe some of your listeners are as well, that there's a really strong connection between stress and how our hormones, our adrenal hormones specifically, get depleted, and how that can cause secondary thyroid issues.
Yep, definitely. And I think that the overlapping, like you said, between thyroid and stress, but also gut health is also tied in. So can you elaborate a little bit more on why nutrition is so important and why one diet might work for one person? Say somebody's on the paleo diet and they're doing really great, but then their neighbor tries paleo and it doesn't work. Can you explain a little bit more what you see in the individuality and why we need to look at each person and each diet individually?
Yeah, that's like the $1 million question, what you just asked. So yeah, I mean, we are as unique as our fingerprints from one another. And we really have to find out what diet is right for us, not what worked great for our neighbor or our friend or our in-law, but what works for us. And it's so tempting to just take someone's advice because you saw them achieve great results with it. But it's so frustrating for people who do that and then don't get results. They might even feel far worse after following what worked really well for someone else. So there's a lot that ties into that. There's genetics, there's current lifestyle, there's previous lifestyle. So for an example, if somebody had a really processed diet growing up, boy, I don't know anybody like that. But if you have had a processed diet and had a lot of, maybe environmental stress, maybe you were, out playing in a pond that had some, radioactive substance. I mean, I'm kind of kidding about that, but we are exposed to different chemicals as we grow up. Some people much more than another. And some people grow up on, eating out of their garden, whereas others are eating out of a box. They're eating a very processed diet. That all influences how our bodies function. And it's that functioning combined with what our genetics are that really determines what kind of diet we're going to need. And so the biggest thing that we can teach people as nutritionists is how to learn to listen to that and to make adjustments accordingly.
Okay, great. Yeah, some really great advice there. And if you could give someone an example of some of the symptoms you might notice that says, hey, something's going on with my gut health, something's going on with my hormones, I should go see a practitioner, or I need help with this, because a lot of people try to do it on their own. I think when it comes to nutrition, they might read a book, read some things online, there's gurus everywhere these days. What are some signs or symptoms that are most common for you as red flags that someone should look for help and maybe speak with a nutritionist such as yourself?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think it's great when people want to take their self-care into their own hands. It's a very empowered place to come from, and I certainly encourage people to start to clean up their diet. I mean, there's a lot of basics that people can do on their own, taking some processed foods out, taking out things like processed sugar and processed salt, and there's many more. But when people cover those basics and they don't feel better, that is a red flag that it's time to seek some deeper understanding. And if they want to spend the next, 10, 15 years reading books and studying it on their own, like, we have, that's fine. You certainly can. The information is out there. There's just so much of it to sift through. And so when people want to feel better faster and get that guidance, it really makes a lot of sense to come to somebody like me.
Well, great. And I know you started to reach more people through your first book. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was and the topic and how that portrayed your passion and your information for fitness, health, diet, lifestyle?
Yeah, absolutely. So my first book, Choosing Health, a one-size-doesn't-fit-all guide to diet, exercise, and motivation, was published just before my daughter was born, so 6 years ago. And that was a very deep calling for me to write that book. I wrote that book after losing my younger brother to cancer. And it really made me want to reach people who could have the choice as to whether their health got improved, to give them some real substantial tools to use and to remind them that whereas health isn't always a choice, it often is. And that we are so able to make daily choices to really coach up our health and wellness so that we can lead full lives where we feel great. And so in that book, I talk about great basic tools for how to get their heads in the right place to make those changes. That's a game changer right there, or a game stopper. If you have somebody who thinks it might be nice to look and feel better, but they don't believe that they are worth it, or that they deserve it, or that they can do it, they're not going to do it. And so the very first 3 chapters of Choosing Health are about how to get your mind and heart and your motivation in the right place before you tackle anything else. And then I dive into nutrition and fitness and other factors that really build a solid foundation for health.
Sounds wonderful, and sounds something that maybe all of us need to read. And bit more about. I know I run into that in my own practice, that I have clients that are 100% so motivated in there, and the work they do is just amazing. It just is so inspiring. And there's other clients that are doing such great work, but then they come to me saying that I don't think I'm ready, or this isn't working, or I'm not in the place I need to be. And it's sometimes, hard as a practitioner to see them making changes that could be so simple but making a huge impact, and then they kind of get down on themselves a little bit. So when it comes to the coaching side, the motivation, which I know you probably pulled some of that from your personal trainer life, when it comes to diet, what are some things that can help motivate people to stay positive about what they're doing and really see this as a practice, something that we do every day?
That's a great question. I think that a lot of people think if they're not perfect, right? Perfect, what is that? Then it's not worth trying. And so establishing what the process could look like for them from the very get-go. Not that, if you don't follow exactly what I say to a T, then you're not going to ever get good health, right? That's unrealistic. So teaching them, this is a process, and all of us are on the same boat together for the rest of our lives. It's not like you ever get to that destination and just miraculously stay there. We are always having to make adjustments. And so I think it really helps for people to feel like they're part of a collective team where they get to make mistakes and have it be okay, and to learn to listen to their body. Because when you learn to do that, you will stop wanting to deviate from those things that make you feel really good in your body. I love when I hear or witness a client's aha moment where they tell me, I went to this party and I ended up having, X, Y, or Z, and I felt awful. And I can now honestly say, I don't want to put that in my body anymore. So that's the beauty of this work, is when you don't have to tell your clients what to do. They've learned it through their own experience, because that's really what it does take, is having the trust in who you're working with, but mainly in yourself, that you can do it. Other people have, of course you can too.
That's great. I love that. I call it the over the hump moment, or getting to the other side of, when the client's body is communicating with them in a way that they can listen and hear the signs of, this is good for me, this makes me feel good, this doesn't make me feel good. And so it's no longer a choice or a drama. You don't feel like you're letting go of something or missing out on anything, because it's not what your body desires anymore. And I just love too that having that moment, because I think we all can have that if we just give ourselves the time and space to get there. Now, in order to get there, it can be kind of challenging, and I want to tap into your functional diagnostic brain a little bit. So one thing that I've seen in my practice is that oftentimes that choice becomes greatly hindered by things like parasites, yeast overgrowth, hormone imbalances, where it seems like these cravings may be coming out of nowhere, or it's very hard on the brain and mental health, like anxiety, depression can kick in. What are some things you notice in gut health that then affect these choices that make it very challenging to have willpower?
Yes, willpower. The myth of willpower. Like you said, you gave some really good examples of those things within us that can control us. And our gut microbiome is a huge component of that. I mean, we're outnumbered, and I want everyone to understand that. They outnumber us 10-1, those bacteria that control a lot of our cravings and how our body works. And so learning to understand that, and part of that is, getting the basics dialed in, and then seeing what isn't right, what remains that needs support. And and there's ways to cut to the chase. I do a number of intakes with new clients so that I can put my thinking cap on and say, I'm seeing a lot of symptoms in this area. This is where we need to look. And we want a holistic approach, right? We don't want to just focus on one aspect, because we are a person, and even if we have poor gut health, do you think it's not affecting everything else in your body? Of course, right? Of course it's everything ties into one another. And so supporting all of those foundational pillars, gut health included, is really important. So we can look at our willpower in a different way. So we can, definitely find out which foods are causing maybe more cravings to occur, or paying attention to, you know, if I don't get enough sleep, I really have a lot more food cravings the next day, because lack of sleep is a huge contributor to blood sugar imbalance and cravings and lack of willpower. So we have to get those self-care basics in place. We have to step up and take care of ourselves. And that is something that I work a lot with people, is just over and over again reinforcing those basic things that they can do every day that make a huge impact on things like willpower and cravings. Does that answer your question completely, or should I go on?
I think that goes in a good way. The one follow-up question I have is tapping into the self-care. Now, in the US, we've come to think that move more, exercise, exercise, exercise is how you lose weight. And I know that, unfortunately, so many people come to me to lose weight. It's this, what's on the outside is starting to really bother them, which I understand, but also there's usually something deeper going on that you and I understand that goes beyond just weight and size and things like that. But what I've noticed is the more I get older, now moving into my mid-30s, that even in my own experience, the more I exercise, sometimes I put on more weight, and the more I relax, or I almost feel like I kind of back off and go gentle on myself, I naturally lose weight. Can you explain a little bit about that phenomenon on how exercise as a physical stressor can have a positive, negative push-pull on the body, and how that affects you throughout your different stages of life?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you said in the United States, because it is not that way all over the world. I have clients that I've been so fortunate to work with all over the world. And there are some things that are quite specific to the United States. So there's this idea that I have to exercise more and eat less, and I have to exercise harder, and, you know, restrict calories to be able to lose body fat. And don't even get me started on the whole, you know, what shape and size you are, and how, you know, there's this one idea of what everyone's body should look like. That's a whole other topic, right? But I know that there's a lot of people who have amazing, beautiful bodies who can't even acknowledge that. And so it almost doesn't even matter if they're losing weight or not, because that's not where the problem is, right? The problem is not what they currently weigh. It's how they perceive themselves as beautiful or not. Now, when someone actually does have weight to lose, or they desire to, you know, maybe you'll get a bit more fit, that's great. And it should come from a place of love, because you cannot change a body that you don't love. It's an endless battle. And regarding what you said about how much exercise we're doing, it can be incredibly beneficial to do hormonal testing and find out what a person's sex hormones are looking like, and what their stress hormones are looking like. That really does make a big difference. And almost regardless of age, because I've worked with very young people who had quite disrupted hormones, and I've worked with older people who did not have disrupted hormones, and they did very different types of exercises to get well. And so somebody who has poor balance, they have a loss of function and viability in their stress hormones, they're going to benefit from taking it down a notch, doing restorative yoga. Yoga can be darn hard, as I'm sure your listeners know. You can have very hard, intense yoga, and that's not going to be appropriate for somebody who is exhausted and has a lot of chaos and stress going on in their life. They're going to benefit from a gentler approach. And I've worked with clients, and you probably have too, that when they toned it way down and did like lots of movement, but not hard exercise, but lots of movement, walking around, moving their body, just having fun and not really focusing on burning calories, that they felt so much better in their bodies, and they actually were at that point were able to achieve their aesthetic.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, I've seen that in clients and people I work with. And the other realm kind of stepping into, we talked a little bit about, you know, different styles of yoga, which not only has a physical benefit, but also a mental, spiritual relaxation benefit. I want to tap a little bit into one side of health that we sometimes forget about, once again, is rest and restore and maybe meditation. And I know you have a new book coming out, or it just was released, I believe, yesterday. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've now kind of come full circle to include this other part of health and self-care?
Yeah, it is so important. It might even be the most important aspect, which is why it's come full circle for me. I studied the physiological effects of stress on the body in college. So this has been, 20 years of research for me, and I've really tried to, gather all of these different tools to tackle stress, and they are very effective. Except when you have someone who's so overcome, they're not resting, they're just completely overloaded and overwhelmed with stress, that it doesn't matter how good their diet is. I mean, it does matter, but they're not going to experience the kinds of health shifts that they ultimately want unless they do tackle the stress. They optimize their sleep. And that's why I wrote Pleasure Meditation, Your Guide to Joyful Stress Reduction. It really came from a place of digging deep within myself and looking at all of the people I'd worked with and which ones were the most successful and which ones just didn't even complete the program. They didn't even really start, right? What stopped them? And, that is discouraging. I hope that people out there understand, we're in this line of work because we love it and we're really passionate, deeply passionate about truly helping people. And yes, we have to pay the bills, but we would do this work regardless, right? If we won the lottery, we would still do this work because we love it. I don't like it when someone works with me and they just quit, and they're like, keep the money, quit. I'm like, oh, I don't like that. What is stopping them? So I gathered all of this information, and that's what really inspired me to write Pleasure Meditation as a way of giving people such an easy way that they can learn how to reduce their stress. So it's like step number one before they ever even take on those challenges of changing their diet and exercise.
I think that's great. I love that approach. We kind of come back to your idea that you have to get in the right mindset in order to move into your, fitness program, your diet program, whatever you're working on, or even if it's just battling a health condition, in order to be mindfully ready, saying, my body can heal, I can do this. And so here, again, we're mostly working with clients here in the US, and culture does play a role in that. When I travel to India, meditation, yoga, just taking walks and movement is a part of life in other countries. Here, we have a more sedentary lifestyle, yet sitting to meditate can drive people crazy. It's kind of funny. You can sit in front of the couch for 3 hours, but to sit down for 3 minutes and meditate seems like it's just going to be too hard. I can't sit still. What are some approaches maybe you talk about in the book or that you've seen successful for different kinds of meditation that doesn't have to be a traditional Zen meditation, or what are some ways to work with people's personal interests and needs when it comes to meditation?
Yes, that is pleasure meditation. That is exactly the tool that pleasure meditation is. It starts out, you can do as little as 3 minutes per day. And in the short guide, it's a really quick read. I, again, wanted it to be accessible because the people that need it the most are like, I can't read a book. Like, Here you go. It's 20 pages long. Anybody can read this. And it really lays out there and gives you ideas for how to customize this meditation for you. I've struggled with meditation. I know how valuable it is. I definitely am an advocate of that. And there was a gap there. There was something missing for me. And again, what I saw also in my clients and what felt accessible. And that's why I developed this tool, so that it could just reach anybody and everybody who really needs to tap into reducing their stress.
Wonderful. And can you give us an example maybe for you personally or a case study with a client on how you saw mindful meditation, this practice of pleasure meditation, show a success? What would be an example of that?
Yes, absolutely. I think that the aha moment is when you realize that you have actually shifted. Like, sometimes it's hard to tell. You probably have those examples with clients. Probably everybody listening to this has an example where they hadn't seen somebody in a while and they noticed that person looked lighter, right? And it's like, oh, maybe I have lost weight. I hadn't realized, right? Because you see yourself every day. And pleasure meditation is a lot like that. So learning how to get into that daily practice where you're spending a few minutes cultivating a different uh, a different brain pattern and tapping into different feelings so that you get that shift in your biochemistry. You get that shift toward positive, beneficial hormones and away from stress hormones. Because that's really when you focus on pleasure, the stress hormones change, things shift around, and that is key. And so what I've loved seeing in myself and in people who I've done this practice with is when they notice that things that used to upset them don't upset them, or they are able to fall asleep more easily. That's a really big one. Is they do it before they go to sleep, and they start to get that rest, that much needed rest. And then they start to release body fat, or those bags under their eyes go away. Their skin starts to be, more beautiful and supple. Their digestion improves, right? Because they're moving away from that stressed out mode, and they're tapping in to those things that really matter.
Wonderful. And yeah, I think it really brings us mindfulness. It's a great word, I think, to use, and something that's spreading more and more, which I love. Mindfulness, not just in a meditation state, but to be mindful before you eat, to be mindful before you go for a walk, to just be in your body and aware versus multitasking all the time can really help the body do what it needs to do. Even though it is a multitasking kind of organism, we really need to be mindful and aware of what and why we're doing things. So when it comes to making that choice, like you said, choosing health now, that choice has to be a mindful choice. Why am I doing this? Can I peel back the layers and go a little bit deeper as to what my true motivation is? So what would be some keys, or maybe 1 or 2 points that maybe you can kind of cheat sheet out there to people as if they want to make this change in their mind, they want to start to move in this direction of choosing health? What's 1 or 2 little things that they could do tomorrow to get that started?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is so great. Well, I love what you said about the mindfulness and being aware, finding your why. Why does it matter? This morning I was making breakfast for my daughter, and as I was doing it, I was really aware as I was, cutting up a banana. I am so happy to have somebody in my life that I love so much, and I'm able to provide nourishing food for her, and she loves it. She wants to eat healthy. I just found all these things to be grateful for. And so that's an example of how that mindfulness can really bring you to that deeper reason of why change is important. So I think that's a really personal question that each person listening to this needs to ask themselves, like, what is it that they want to feel improvement with? And why is that? Asking these questions there, and really sitting with yourself to answer them. What is it that I would like to have? What's important to me? Why do I want to have that? Because sometimes we have this idea, it's just a response, right? It's an auto reply of, oh, I want this. But it's not really something we really care about. Maybe somebody else in our lives cares about it and it's important to them, but it's not important to you. And you're never going to have lasting change if it's not really important to you. So right away, and my first book, these are questions that I ask my readers to answer and journal about, is asking those questions and being really honest with yourself about what is important to you, why is it important to you. Listen to your answers and record them. That would be a huge one. The other things would be, starting to honestly ask, when you're making dietary choices, for example, what feels really good when I eat it? Not what tastes good, although it might be the same thing, but what really actually makes me feel good and nourished and able to connect to other people. Because when I know for myself and a lot of my clients, if my diet's not dialed in, I don't want to be around people. I'm kind of, I'm not antisocial at all, but if I don't feel well nourished, I don't want to be hanging out with anybody. And so you don't really show up your best self in the world when you don't, give yourself those basic building blocks.
Definitely, yeah. And I feel you 100% on that one. And I definitely noticed that you can feel a drop, but then also you can get right back on the horse right away. I think sometimes people have a bad day, or they say they cheat, or whatever you want to hear in their diet, or something just isn't feeling right to them. But for me, one of my personal practices is there's always tomorrow. You get back up, you do the same thing, you make choices, you make changes, and then it's a new day. Our body is so powerful that the cells are changing, and our liver and the different parts of the body completely regenerate on a regular basis. Our gut microbiome can change in a matter of days and weeks. And so choosing now to start to make a change and a choice, whatever now is for you. In yoga, we say, the first sutra is, now we begin yoga. Now is your now. And so I think that's really empowering to do that. So if people wanted to start now, and maybe their first step is to buy your book or both your books, where can they find your books, and where can they learn more about you and your practice?
Yeah, and beautifully said about how it starts now, and there's always opportunity to begin again. I think that's really inspiring. So if people are looking to deeply dive in, or even shallowly dive in at first and learn more, they can visit my website, which is choosinghealthnow.com. And there are links to both of my books. They're available on Amazon. But that's a great place to start. And they can also contact me. I offer free consultations to any prospective new clients, so that we can see if we're a good match for each other, and they can get a sense of where we might go together.
Okay, great. Well, wonderful, Rebecca. It's been so nice speaking with you, and I know since we met years ago now, I've learned so much from the classes that you presented, the books that you've offered, and I just love that your approach is so personable, and it's something that's very accessible for anyone at any level, and whatever their questions may be. So thank you for that, and your passion just comes out so easily just speaking to you now and every time we've spoken in the past. So I really look forward to talking again more, and I wish you all the best on your book. Is there anything lastly you'd like to say before we sign off today?
Oh, thank you, Ashley, and mutual admiration there, and it's such a pleasure to talk with you and to reach your listeners. I guess I would just say to everyone, remember to breathe. That's very, very basic, but so, so wonderful. Just to take a moment, be present in your bodies, and feel grateful for being alive and being able to listen in.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to reading the new book, and I'll be sure to share it with friends and family as well. And hopefully we'll talk again soon. Thank you all so much for listening, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.